Imagine you're just, you're sitting alone in your apartment, and it's like 3 in the morning.
The classic witching hour.
Right, exactly.
Hmm.
And the glow of your phone is literally the only light in the room. It's casting this pale, ghostly illumination across your face. And you're just scrolling.
Just doom scrolling.
Yeah, scrolling and swiping past all these headlines about environmental collapse and, taking in footage of gift shops built at gun ranges, just absorbing these endless avalanches of data about a world that feels like it's vibrating apart.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. I mean, comedian Bo Burnham captured this so perfectly in his special Inside.
Oh, yeah, that was brilliant.
Right. He sits alone in a room, bathed in artificial light, and he sings about this very specific, slow, strange terror of living in the 21st century. He calls it that funny feeling.
A very poetic way to describe it.
But let's drop the poetic language for a second, right? Let's name that feeling for what it truly is, because it's a biological hijacking. It is modern anxiety.
It really is. I mean, it is the defining, inescapable undercurrent of our era. Burnham's special didn't just resonate, it struck a raw nerve because it articulated the central paradox of living right now.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, we are the most technologically advanced, hyper-informed population in the history of the human species. Yet that exact stream of information acts as a catalyst for this, profound collective disassociation.
We're watching the world end in 4K.
Exactly. We are watching human activity flirt with apocalyptic catastrophes in high definition. And the biological response to witnessing that level of constant, abstract threat is exactly what Burnham described. It's not a sudden panic.
It's the slow dread.
Right. It is a slow, unshakable, grinding dread.
Which brings us to the actual mission of today's deep dive. We're pulling our insights from a truly profound book by Martha Beck called Beyond Anxiety.
Curiosity, creativity, and finding your life's purpose.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And I want to set the stakes right out of the gate for you, the listener, because if you've ever dealt with this, you know how patronizing most advice can be.
Oh, tell me about it.
We aren't going to give you a list of deep breathing exercises. We aren't going to tell you to take a bubble bath, drink some chamomile tea, and just, let it go.
Because taking a bubble bath to cure a neurologically entrenched anxiety disorder is, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken engine.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So the mission here is far more fundamental. We are going to deconstruct the actual biological nuts and bolts of why our brains physically trap us in these states of panic.
We are looking at the literal neurological mechanics of fear.
And more importantly, we are going to map out a radical, entirely science-backed escape route.
Yes.
Wait, hold on. I need to push back on that phrasing for a second before we get too far. When you say escape route, you mean managing the pathways, right?
No, I mean completely replacing them.
Because overriding the biology of panic sounds a bit like pop psychology magic. I mean, how is that physically possible to just replace a biological function?
I know it sounds wild, but it is entirely grounded in hard neuroscience, not magic. We are talking about utilizing the unstoppable force of human creativity and curiosity to physically rewire the brain's hardware.
Wow. Okay.
It's a massive paradigm shift. But to understand why a paradigm shift of that magnitude is even necessary, we first have to look at the staggering scale of what we are dealing with.
Because it's not just a niche problem anymore.
Exactly. This isn't a problem experienced by a few highly strung individuals. It is a global crisis. In her book, Beck points out that back in 1948, W.H. Auden won a Pulitzer Prize for his poem titled The Age of Anxiety.
Okay, with all due respect to Mr. Auden, if 1948 was the age of anxiety, what do we even call today?
Right.
I mean, 1948 feels like amateur hour. Sure, they had the dawn of the atomic age, which is scary, but they didn't have a glowing rectangle in their pocket alerting them to every single localized tragedy on the planet in real time.
The contrast is genuinely staggering. By 2022, the New York Times moved past poetic labels and officially called adolescent anxiety the inner pandemic.
The inner pandemic.
Yeah. And the epidemiological data backs up that dramatic language. Let's look at the numbers. In 2017, the World Health Organization estimated there were 284 million global cases of anxiety disorders.
That's a huge number.
And keep in mind, that is just the reported clinically diagnosed cases. The unreported number, of the people just white-knuckling their way through life is undoubtedly much higher.
And then 2020 happened. The entire world was forced to lock their doors and stare at the news.
The world changed overnight, and the statistics reflect a complete neurological overload of the human population. During the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic alone, we saw a staggering 25% spike in global prevalence.
25%.
Yes, the number shot up to nearly 374 million people. By 2020, nearly half of all human beings surveyed reported experiencing regular bouts of this torturous condition.
Half the planet.
And the trajectory didn't magically improve when lockdowns ended. By 2023, a full 50% of young adults, people between the ages of 18 and 24, were reporting debilitating symptoms of anxiety. It has officially become the most common mental illness in the entire world.
It's a wall of statistics, and it's easy to let numbers wash over you. But as the author notes, statistics are just people with the tears washed off.
That's a powerful way to frame it.
It is. And what makes this source material so compelling and frankly so trustworthy is that Martha Beck isn't writing from an ivory tower.
No, not at all.
She isn't a detached social scientist observing the masses through a two-way mirror. She lived with this. She describes her own anxiety in the book as white-hot volcanic eruptions of dread.
Her personal anecdotes are incredibly striking.
Yeah.
Because they illustrate just how early and how fiercely this biology can take hold of a developing brain.
Right.
She recalls being completely paralyzed with fear about wasting her life, not when she was 40, when she was turning 4 years old.
4. I mean, most 4-year-olds are having meltdowns because their sandwich was cut into triangles instead of squares.
Exactly.
She is having a full-blown existential crisis about the rapid, unstoppable passage of time and her own unfulfilled potential. That's not normal childhood worry.
It's an overloaded nervous system,
Wow.
and it only escalated as she grew. She writes about a specific instance in grade school where she received a seemingly innocuous assignment to write a poem.
It was a normal homework assignment.
Right, but her internal fear of inadequacy, the dread that her work would be exposed as fraudulent or stupid, was so intense that it triggered an extreme physiological response.
What happened?
She stayed awake for 5 consecutive hallucinatory days and nights.
Oh, my.
Imagine a child staying awake for 5 days straight, trapped in a loop of panic over a poem until her pediatrician actually had to prescribe her Valium just to shut her brain down.
Which really highlights the sheer physical toll we are talking about here.
Right.
When people say anxiety is on your head, they make it sound like a passing thought you can just swat away.
It's so dismissive.
It is. But it's a physiological hijacking. Her body was flooded with stress hormones to the point where sleep was biologically impossible. She even passed out cold at a high school debate simply from the terror of public speaking.
The blood just left her brain.
Right. For her, moving through life wasn't about bravery. It was a frenetic, exhausting sprint to outrun this constant dark cloud. She eventually went into the social sciences at Harvard, specifically to figure out her own mind, desperately trying to find a way out of the constant unease.
But her early research was completely demoralizing.
Why is that?
Well, she details the absolute despair she felt when she first began studying psychology and neurology in an academic setting. The prevailing scientific dogma of the 20th century was that the human brain was essentially a finished product by the time you were 5 years old.
Wow.
It was believed to be fixed, fully formed, and completely unchangeable.
I always found that older scientific consensus so baffling. I mean, if a muscle can grow and change based on how you use it, why did scientists assume the brain was basically poured into a mold and left to harden?
It came down to the early limits of observation. Pioneering neuroscientists like Santiago Ramon y Cajal in the early 1900s observed that brain cells in adults didn't seem to regenerate the way skin cells or liver cells did.
Okay, so they couldn't see the growth.
Right. So from that visual limitation, the scientific community extrapolated a massive, bleak assumption. If the cells don't divide and grow, the structure must be permanent.
The textbooks literally taught that your neural pathways were poured in concrete during early childhood.
Exactly. Whatever neurological structure you had by age 5, whether it was resilient or whether it was highly anxious and hyperreactive, was the structure you were stuck with for the rest of your life.
So if you had an anxious brain as a child, the medical consensus was that you would have an anxious brain until the day you died.
Yes.
If you were someone like the author, who has been having existential panic attacks since preschool, reading that in a Harvard textbook is a life sentence.
It really is.
It's the scientific community telling you, sorry, your hardware is permanently corrupted. Good luck.
But then, the technology finally caught up.
Thank goodness.
We invented fMRI machines, we developed new ways of imaging blood flow and synaptic connections in living brains, and the entire scientific establishment had a massive oops moment.
Very big oops.
They realized they had been completely fundamentally wrong. The brain isn't fixed at all. It is constantly reshaping itself, growing new connections, and pruning old ones based on how we use it all the way through our entire lives.
And that discovery is called neuroplasticity.
Yes, neuroplasticity. It is the brain's inherent lifelong malleability. It means the brain physically changes its shape and function in response to experience, thought, and behavior. At a cellular level, neurons that fire together wire together.
And conversely, neural pathways that are ignored will weaken and be pruned away.
Precisely. For the author, discovering this concept was a watershed moment. Her heart, as she says, soared like the Goodyear blimp. She realized she wasn't doomed, so she started devouring every study she could find on the subject.
And there was one specific study that really cemented this for her, involving Tibetan monks.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Scientists were peering into the brains of monks who had spent thousands of hours in deep meditation. And they found that these monks had unusually dense tissue in the specific regions of the brain associated with happiness, compassion, and baseline calm.
Right, and the details of that specific study at the University of Wisconsin are what make it so incredible. They were measuring gamma waves, which are associated with high levels of focus and consciousness.
Okay.
There was one specific monk, a man named Yongey Minyor Rinpoche, whose brain density and gamma wave activity in these calming, compassion-focused regions was so extraordinarily high that the scientists actually paused the experiment.
They thought their equipment was broken, didn't they?
Yes, they thought the scanning equipment must be malfunctioning. His results were literally off the charts. He was, neurologically speaking, a superhero of tranquility.
But here's the critical part, the part that gave Beck so much hope. He was not born that way.
No, he wasn't.
The kicker is that this monk, this Zen master, who broke the brain scanner with his calmness, had spent his entire childhood battling crippling panic attacks.
He had the exact same debilitating anxiety as the author.
He would hyperventilate, he couldn't leave his room. And through sustained mental practice, he had completely rewired his physical brain.
It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the machinery can be altered. The hardware is actually software.
I love thinking about it this way. The old view of the brain was like looking at a concrete building. The cement was poured when you were a toddler, it dried, and now you just have to live in whatever weird, drafty, lopsided house was built.
Right.
But neuroplasticity tells us the brain isn't a concrete building at all. It's a living city infrastructure.
Mm.
The roads are there, sure, and some of those roads are massive 8-lane superhighways because you drive them every day.
If you practice worrying every day, you build a superhighway for worry.
Exactly. But if a road is constantly leading you to a terrible neighborhood like constant panic, you can just stop driving it. You can endlessly reroute the traffic, let the old asphalt crack and fade, and pave entirely new pathways to better destinations.
It's a great analogy.
But if we accept that if we know the brain can rewire itself, and we have the fMRI scans to prove it, why is it so incredibly hard? Why are so many of us, including people who desperately want to change, still stuck in the traffic jam of anxiety?
To answer that, we have to look under the hood at the biology of threat detection. We have to draw a strict, uncompromising line between two things that modern society constantly confuses: fear and anxiety.
They are not the same thing.
They are not synonyms. Anxiety is not fear. They are entirely different physiological events with entirely different purposes.
The author brings in Gavin de Becker here, the violence prevention expert who wrote The Gift of Fear. I always thought that title was an oxymoron until I understood this distinction.
De Becker's work is foundational here. True fear is an evolutionary masterpiece. It is a vital, priceless survival mechanism engineered over millions of years.
Okay, how does it work?
When you are in actual immediate physical danger, true fear is meant to hit you incredibly hard. The amygdala registers a threat and instantly triggers the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands.
So it's an immediate physical response.
Within milliseconds, it floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol. It shunts blood away from your digestive organs and pushes it into your major muscle groups so you can run or fight. It dilates your pupils so you can see better in the dark. It is a massive mobilization of bodily resources.
But it doesn't last.
Crucially, no. It instantly disappears the second the threat is gone. The parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, acts like a brake, and brings your baseline down. It is a rapid response short-term system. Anxiety, conversely, is a haunting.
A haunting. That is such a visceral, accurate way to describe it.
It is a haunting because anxiety pulls your attention entirely inward. It pulls you away from your actual physical reality in the present moment. True fear happens when a threat is in the room. Anxiety persists when you are completely safe.
It's just spinning its wheels.
Right. It offers no constructive action, no burst of useful physical energy to solve a problem. It just simmers, slowly grinding down your immune system and exhausting your adrenal glands.
To really hammer home the stark biological difference between the two, Beck shares this stunning anecdote from a trip to the Lundalozi Game Reserve in South Africa.
Yeah.
Let's paint the picture for you.
Please do.
She is sitting alone, late at night, in a small cottage with a thatched roof. She's in her pajamas, sitting on her bed, just typing away on her laptop. The night is perfectly still, only the sound of the keyboard clicking. And suddenly, a sharp, guttural noise absolutely shatters the quiet.
And it's not a small noise.
No, it sounds like a revving chainsaw, but deeper, vibrating right through the walls. It's a leopard,
Yeah.
and it is calling out from just 6 feet away, right outside her flimsy screen door.
Now, in that fraction of a second, her biological fear response detonates. It bypasses conscious thought entirely. She doesn't think, oh, I hear a leopard, I should probably move.
Right, there's no time for logic.
The sensory data hits the amygdala, the adrenaline spikes, and she describes instantaneously levitating straight up into the air and diving into the mosquito netting over her bed.
Levitation.
Pure, unadulterated, evolutionary survival instinct fueled by adrenaline. That is true fear. The threat is real, the proximity is immediate, and her body takes over to get her out of the way.
But the magic, the really illustrative part of the story, happens right after the levitation. She's tangled in the netting, her heart is hammering against her ribs. She glances over, and through the screen, she sees the leopard's half-lit form gliding past the door and walking away into the tall grass.
It isn't interested in her.
And the very second her brain registers that the animal is moving away, the fear vanishes. It doesn't fade slowly over the next 3 hours. It drops off a cliff.
Immediate reset.
The danger is gone, so the fear is gone. She says that immediately her blood felt like it had been replaced by fine champagne. She is beaming. She is flooded with this euphoric relief and peace.
And what is so crucial to understand about that immediate reset is that it is the default baseline state for the entire animal kingdom.
Really?
Yes. Animals process life or death situations with incredible, brutal efficiency, and then they let it go. Beck uses the example of a lion attacking a wildebeest on the savannah. The lion stalks the wildebeest, bursts out of the grass, and chases it. It is a literal fight for survival.
High stakes.
But the wildebeest manages to juke out of the way and escape. The lion realizes it missed its chance, gives up, stops running, and just stands there panting in the heat.
Okay, so what does the wildebeest do?
It doesn't develop PTSD. It doesn't go to a therapist to talk about its unresolved trauma with the lion. It doesn't obsess over what could have happened if it had been a second slower. Instantly, despite its would-be murderer standing in plain sight just 100 yards away, the wildebeest lowers its head and goes right back to chewing the grass. The parasympathetic nervous system engages, the heart rate drops, and it hits the biological reset button.
Okay, but if a wildebeest can hit a biological reset button with a literal apex predator staring at it from across a field, why am I lying awake at 2 a.m., my heart racing, zero champagne in my bloodstream, absolutely terrified about an ambiguous email I have to send on Tuesday?
It's the human condition.
What is fundamentally broken in the human machine that prevents us from just eating the grass?
It isn't that something is broken, it's that our greatest evolutionary advantage has a massive side effect. We lack the easy reset button because of our highly developed prefrontal cortex, our fancy powers of speech, logic, and imagination.
Ah, our big brains.
Right. The wildebeest does not possess the mental architecture to run complex simulations of the future or narrate detailed stories about the past. We do. And this is where the specific biology gets tricky. Deep in the center of your brain, nestled in the temporal lobe, you have an ancient structure called the amygdala.
The inner almond.
The inner almond, named for its shape. You actually have two of them, one in the left hemisphere and one in the right. They are positioned right next to the hippocampus, which handles memory. And the amygdala's entire job, its singular purpose, is threat detection.
It's the radar.
It acts as the brain's radar system. When it senses something unfamiliar or potentially dangerous, a loud noise, a looming shadow, an aggressive tone of voice, it issues a universal biological alarm. It sends a surge of electrochemical urgency through the brain. Beck playfully calls this alarm a yelp.
Yup.
Precisely that kind of sudden, jarring interruption. When that yelp goes off, the whole brain springs into action to deal with the danger. For a wildebeest, the yelp stops the exact moment the lion stops chasing it.
But for us,
For a human, our brilliant storytelling intellect interferes with the cooldown process. The human mind reacts to the yelp by using language, memory, and imagination to keep the fear alive.
so if the amygdala is the alarm bell, the left hemisphere of the brain is the guy who hears the bell and starts screaming that the building is going to collapse.
Exactly.
This brings us to the mechanics of the anxiety spiral and how our own intellect completely betrays us.
Let's break down exactly what happens neurologically when your amygdala lets out that yelp. The left hemisphere of the human brain is the side largely responsible for logic, sequence, analysis, and language. It is an explanation machine.
Okay.
Michael Gazzaniga's famous split brain experiments in the 20th century proved that the left brain is constantly acting as an interpreter. It hates uncertainty. It despises a void.
It needs a story.
Yes. So when it feels the sudden, unexplained alarm from the amygdala, it immediately tries to make sense of it. It does two things simultaneously. First, it creates explanations to justify why you are feeling afraid. Second, it concocts control strategies to regain command of the situation.
And because the brain is suddenly marinating in stress hormones, those explanations and control strategies can be wildly, almost comically absurd.
They really can.
To vividly illustrate this, Beck tells a story about her friend Jennifer, who actually had a leopard encounter at that exact same Lundalozi game reserve. Jennifer wakes up in the middle of her first night there to a horrifying sound. Fangs crunching through bone. A leopard is sitting right outside her screen door eating an impala carcass.
So Jennifer's amygdala issues a massive, entirely justified yelp. The radar detects a lethal predator.
Right. But unlike Beck, who just let the adrenaline move her body and then relaxed,
Yeah.
Jennifer's left brain goes into hyperdrive. It demands an explanation for the threat, and it urgently demands a control strategy to fix it.
And her left brain's theory is spectacular.
It is. Jennifer happens to be wearing fuzzy leopard print pajamas.
Yeah.
So her logical, analytical left brain rapid fires a conclusion. The leopard is going to see my fuzzy pajamas through the screen. It will mistake me for a territorial rival, and it will break in and attack me.
That is the explanation her brain generates.
So what is the control strategy to save her life? She sits bolt upright in bed, grabs a beige blanket, wraps herself tightly in it, and decides to pose as a termite mound.
It is deeply hilarious in retrospect. We can laugh at it now, but it perfectly highlights the absurdity of the anxious left brain when it is pushed into overdrive.
Posing as a termite mound.
In that specific moment, to her terrified mind, disguising herself as a bug nest inside a cabin didn't feel silly. It felt like a completely rational, mathematically necessary survival tactic. The left brain will invent any logic to regain a feeling of control.
It makes total sense to a brain on fire. Though wait, here's where I get confused about the biology. If I imagine something silly like being a termite mound, or if I imagine something terrifying like a leopard ripping through a screen, I know it's just my imagination. I know it's a story. Why does my body react as if it's real? Doesn't the brain know the difference between a thought and a physical leopard?
No, that is the tragedy of the human condition right there. The prefrontal cortex, the conscious thinking part of you, knows it's a story. But the left amygdala, the ancient alarm bell, cannot distinguish between a real, physical threat in the room and an imagined threat generated by the left hemisphere.
I can't tell the difference.
It reacts to these imagined thoughts as if they are actually happening right now in physical reality. This is the exact biological crux of the anxiety spiral.
How does the loop work then?
The amygdala goes yup because of a noise. The left brain says, what if the leopard claws out my intestines? The left amygdala reacts to the mental image of intestines being clawed out, which triggers a new, bigger yop.
Oh, wow.
The left brain feels that bigger yop, assumes the danger has exponentially increased, and is forced to write an even scarier story to justify the higher panic. Oh no, the termite mound disguise isn't working, it's looking right at me. That thought triggers an even louder yop.
The alarm causes the story, and the story causes the alarm.
It is a continuous, unregulated, escalating feedback loop.
Beck uses this brilliant analogy that makes the mechanics of this so clear. She calls it the tire ripper. Think about those metal spikes you see at the exit of a rental car parking lot. The sign says, "Do not back up. Severe tire damage."
We've all seen those.
You can drive forward over those spikes perfectly fine. They just depress into the ground as the tire rolls over them. But if you try to stop and roll backward, the spikes spring up, dig into the rubber, and shred your tires.
Yep.
The anxiety spiral in the left brain works exactly the same way. The brain's neural architecture makes it incredibly easy, almost frictionless, to roll forward into higher and higher panic. Every scary thought depresses the spike and moves you up the ramp. But the biological mechanism, the amygdala reacting to the stories, prevents you from easily rolling backward into relaxation.
Spikes catch you.
You can't logic your way out of it because the logic is what's generating the fear. It's an unregulated feedback cycle that just feeds on its own energy.
And we see this exact tire ripper dynamic play out constantly in everyday scenarios, far away from the savannas of South Africa. Think about how this manifests in regular, mundane listener realities. Beck outlines a few case studies that anyone listening will instantly recognize.
Like Kayla?
Take Kayla, for example. She walks into her living room, and her husband is sitting on the couch looking at his phone. As soon as she enters, he immediately turns the screen off, slides the phone under his leg, and acts a little too enthusiastic to see her.
The amygdala detects an anomaly. Yep.
Exactly that. There is a jolt of alarm. The pattern has been broken. Her left brain demands an explanation. He's hiding something. Why is he hiding something?
And it spins a story.
It immediately starts spinning a narrative to fill the void. He's gambling again. He's looking at porn. He's messaging his ex. He's having an affair. The left amygdala reacts to the mental story of the affair as if it is an undeniable physical fact occurring right in front of her.
So her body floods with cortisol.
A massive wave of dread and cortisol. Kayla's left brain control strategy is to aggressively confront him, demand to see the phone, and start a massive argument to regain control of her emotional safety.
And what was he actually doing?
The tragic, heartbreaking irony of the situation is that he was actually hiding his phone because he was looking at caterers. He was secretly planning her surprise birthday party. Her brain generated a cinematic tragedy, a complete relational meltdown out of a gesture of profound love.
I feel like we've all been Kayla at some point. Or look at Simon in the workplace. This one is so common in corporate environments.
It really is.
Simon's a manager, but he's younger than most of his team. He walks into a meeting, and an older colleague questions one of his decisions. His amygdala issues a yelp of insecurity. Threat detected to my social status.
His left brain rapidly explains it. They think I'm immature. They know I don't have the experience. They won't respect me. They'll complain to my boss, and I'll be fired.
So what is his control strategy? He needs to assert dominance. So he acts incredibly arrogant. He uses corporate jargon, he shows off his technical skills, he cuts people off, and he micromanages their tasks to prove he's the boss.
And the result?
He alienates the entire team. They start to resent him. The environment actually becomes hostile. People start complaining, which validates his initial fear and fuels his anxiety spiral even more. He manufactured the exact reality he was terrified of.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then there is the parental anxiety spiral, which, from an evolutionary standpoint, might be the most powerful and ruthless of all because it involves the survival of offspring. Beck uses the example of Jared and Sophie, who have a new baby, Ruby.
Okay, what happens with the Ruby?
Ruby is perfectly healthy, but one afternoon, she gets the sniffles, a tiny sneeze. To a new parent's amygdala, that sneeze is a klaxon horn. The left brain demands an explanation and a control strategy. The sniffle is the threat. So what do?
They go online.
They engage in a panicked late-night internet deep dive on WebMD. They type baby sneezing lethargic into a search engine. Within 20 minutes, their left brains have connected a common cold to a terrifying fantasy about rare, incurable autoimmune or respiratory diseases.
Because the internet is basically a vending machine for worst-case scenarios.
It provides endless fuel for the left brain's storyteller. Jared and Sophie get so physically tense, their voices get so tight, their heart rates elevate so much that baby Ruby, who is highly attuned to her parents' nervous systems, senses their stress.
So the baby reacts.
She feels the physical tension when they hold her. So Ruby gets stressed and she starts wailing. Jared and Sophie interpret the wailing not as a reaction to their own anxiety, but as a definitive symptom of the rare disease they just read about. This sends them rushing to the emergency room for unnecessary, expensive, and stressful medical appointments.
Okay, so if we take a step back and look at the macro picture here, we have all these individual brains spinning on their own personal tire rippers. We have people generating termite mound delusions about leopards, creating WebMD panic spirals about sniffles, and starting fights over surprise parties.
A planet full of tire rippers.
Right. But what happens when you put 8 billion of these incredibly imaginative, highly anxious, left-brain dominant machines on the exact same planet, and then you wire them all together with global communication networks? Do our amygdalas communicate with each other?
They absolutely do. This leads us to a terrifying but vital realization about modern society. As society makes us anxious, we make society anxious. Anxiety is highly, highly contagious. It is a literal social contagion.
Wait, contagious? Like a virus? I mean, I understand being stressed out because my boss is yelling, but you're saying the actual neurological state of anxiety transfers from person to person.
Yes, and this isn't just a poetic metaphor about bad vibes. It is rooted in our hard neurobiology. We have specific networks of cells in our brains called mirror neurons.
Mirror neuron.
These were famously discovered by researchers like Giacomo Rizzolotti, who were studying macaque monkeys. They found that the same neurons that fired when a monkey grabbed a peanut also fired when the monkey simply watched a human grab a peanut.
That's incredible.
Our brains are biologically wired to simulate the actions and emotions of the creatures around us. These mirror cells automatically shift our internal state to reflect the emotional states of the people we are observing.
It's like an empathetic reflex.
Exactly. It is a brilliant, empathetic survival mechanism. If you are a hunter-gatherer and the person next to you suddenly looks terrified, it behooves you to also feel terrified and run even before you see the tiger.
Makes sense.
But in the modern world, it means that if you walk into a room full of panicked people, or if you open an app filled with panicked people, your mirror cells will begin firing, and your amygdala will start issuing yops before you even consciously know what the supposed danger is.
So we are just absorbing everyone else's panic by osmosis.
Yeah.
And our modern world is basically constructed to keep those mirror cells firing on high alert all the time.
Oh, without a doubt.
Think about the structures we inhabit daily. We have educational systems that constantly rank children against each other from the time they are 5 years old, creating a baseline, low-grade fear of failure and social exclusion. We have corporate environments built on precarious competition, where layoffs are always a looming threat.
And the pressure is constant.
And then we have the news cycle. It acts like an up escalator of anxiety. It is a 24/7, high-definition, algorithmic barrage of global doom piped directly into our pockets. It is literally designed to trigger the amygdala because fear keeps eyes on the screen.
The up escalator is the perfect visualization. You step onto the escalator of modern life, and even if you are standing completely still, even if your personal life is fine, society is mechanically pulling you upward into a state of panic.
We absorb it.
We absorb this ambient cultural dread through our mirror cells. We then amplify it with our own left brain storytelling, customizing the dread to our specific lives, and then we pump it right back out into our families, our workplaces, and our politics. It becomes a macro-level societal anxiety spiral.
Buck illustrates this societal tire ripper with a story about going through airport security. She is at the TSA checkpoint, putting her bags on the belt. The screeners pull her bag aside, rifle through it, and find an eyelash curler.
An eyelash curler.
They scowl at it, huddle together, pronounce it a dangerous, prohibited item, and confiscate it.
It sounds absurd on the surface.
On the surface, taking an eyelash curler from a middle-aged author is totally absurd. But let's walk through the internal logic of this collective spiral, because it is a perfect microcosm of how society operates when it's infected with fear.
Right.
Society suffered a very real, incredibly horrifying mass casualty trauma on September 11th. That event caused the collective amygdala of the entire nation and much of the world to sound a massive, deafening, completely justified yop.
The threat was real, the trauma was profound, but remember what the left brain does in response to a massive yop. It cannot tolerate the uncertainty of we might be attacked again. It demands control strategies.
And on a societal level,
The left brain of our culture went into bureaucratic overdrive to regain a feeling of command and safety.
the societal left brain said, we cannot control global geopolitics, but we can control airports. If we force every single person to pack their liquids in tiny 3-ounce plastic bottles, we are safe. If we make millions of people take off their shoes and walk in their socks every day, we are safe.
If we confiscate this woman's eyelash curler because it's made of metal, we are safe.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a deeply tragic, self-defeating logic inherent in collective anxiety. Society has essentially convinced itself that the only way to feel safe is to never, ever feel safe.
That's profound.
We must remain in a state of permanent, exhausting vigilance, constantly imagining new microscopic threats and imposing new, increasingly absurd control strategies to manage them.
It's exhausting.
It is, and this impartial biological mechanism perfectly explains so much of what we see in the news today. It explains the rising tide of conspiracy theories. A conspiracy theory is just the ultimate left brain explanation for a chaotic world.
It imposes an order on the chaos.
Right. It explains extreme political polarization and the constant drumbeat of international conflict. People aren't necessarily acting out of inherent malice. They are trapped in a collective anxiety spiral. Their mirror cells are feeding off the panic of their neighbors. Their left brains are spinning darker and darker fantasies of threat, and they are demanding rigid control to make the fear stop.
We were essentially yelling fire in a crowded theater of 8 billion people.
Yes.
Okay, this is where I start to feel a little claustrophobic. If the entire world is spinning on this massive societal anxiety merry-go-round, and our mirror cells are biologically forcing us to absorb the panic of the people around us, how on earth is one person supposed to step off?
It's a great question.
If I'm on the up escalator and everyone else is on the up escalator, I can't just isolate myself in a cave and disconnect from humanity. So what is the actual practical escape hatch?
The escape hatch isn't found by changing your geography. Moving to the woods won't fix it because your left brain will just come with you and start worrying about bears instead of emails. The escape hatch is found by changing which side of your brain you are living in.
We are crossing the threshold now. We've spent all this time talking about the left brain and how its storytelling builds the anxiety spiral. Now we need to look at the other side of the hardware.
The right hemisphere.
Right. We need to introduce the profound, almost alien differences between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the human brain.
The distinction between the two hemispheres is vital to understanding human consciousness. As we discussed, the left hemisphere is the analytical side. It is logical, it is highly verbal, it relies on language to categorize the world.
This storyteller.
It is deeply concerned with linear time, sequence, and predicting potential future threats based on past data. It is the seat of the interpreter and therefore the seat of the anxiety spiral.
What about the right brain?
The right hemisphere operates on an entirely different operating system. It does not use verbal language to narrate. It is attuned to broad sense perceptions, to raw emotions, to intuition, and to understanding the context of the whole picture rather than focusing on isolated parts.
It's more holistic.
Crucially, it doesn't narrate the past or predict the future. It exists in an infinite, sprawling present moment.
But if the right brain is so peaceful and present, why don't we just live there all the time? The problem is that the left brain is a total bully. It completely dominates our waking experience because it's the side that talks.
It's the loud one.
To explain why the fearful, analytical left brain is so loud and why it's so obsessed with finding threats, Beck tells this incredible, hilarious story about her family dog, a cockapoo named Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, I love this story.
The family receives a gag gift in the mail, a life-size cardboard cutout of Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of the musical Hamilton. It looks exactly like him, same smile, same silhouette. Yeah. The family sets it up in the living room and thinks it's a great joke, but Bilbo Baggins, the cockapoo, takes one look at this flat, two-dimensional, scentless, unmoving cardboard man, and his evolutionary fight-or-flight response goes absolutely nuclear.
The dog's threat detection system perceives an anomaly in its environment, and it assumes the absolute worst.
Bilbo views this harmless piece of cardboard as a nightmare fiend. He barks at it aggressively, he tries to attack it, his hair is standing on end. The family realizes it's stressing the dog out, so they fold the cutout up and hide it in a dark closet.
Yeah, problem solves, right?
No, because Bilbo remembers. Every single day, for months, he sits in the hallway, staring at the closet door, barking his head off, trying to protect his pack from the flat cardboard Lin-Manuel Miranda lurking in the shadows.
It is a very funny image, but it serves as a perfect biological illustration of a concept called the negativity bias. Evolution actively, intentionally, wired our brains to assume the absolute worst in any unfamiliar situation.
Why would it do that?
The logic of natural selection is simple and brutal. If you are walking in the woods and you see a curved shape on the ground and your brain mistakes a harmless stick for a deadly snake, you get a quick jolt of fear, you jump back, but you stay alive.
Right.
If you do the opposite, if you assume a deadly snake is just a harmless stick, you get bitten and you die out of the gene pool.
So paranoia is an evolutionary advantage.
Therefore, the brains that survived, reproduced, and became our ancestors were the ones that erred on the side of extreme paranoid caution. The human brain is a machine designed to assume everything is a snake.
And that bias doesn't just apply to physical danger in the woods anymore. We aren't hunting on the savannah. But that exact same biological software now dominates our social and emotional lives.
Absolutely.
Think about social media. If you post a photo online or you publish an article and you receive 1,000 wonderful, supportive, glowing comments, but somewhere down at the bottom, one anonymous internet troll leaves a single comment that just says, ugly. Where does your brain go?
It instantly spotlights the troll. It completely zeroes in on the single threat and actively ignores the mountain of safety, approval, and connection.
The 1,000 good comments vanish.
The left brain acts like a funhouse hall of mirrors, distorting reality to match its internal evolutionary fears. When the negativity bias is active, your brain physically filters out evidence of safety. It magnifies any potential danger, blowing it out of proportion, trapping you in a terrifying reflection of your own anxiety. You live in a world where every closet hides a cardboard monster.
So if the left brain is a terrified dog barking at a cardboard cutout in the Hall of Mirrors, what does it actually feel like to exist purely in the right brain? If we could silence the storyteller, what is left?
To answer that, Beck brings in the extraordinary real-life experience of neuroanatomist Jill Bolt Taylor.
This story is incredible.
Taylor's story is absolutely mind-blowing, and it provides the clearest window into what the right hemisphere actually does. Taylor was working as a brain scientist at Harvard, literally studying the intricate structures of neural pathways, when she woke up one morning with a sharp pain behind her eye.
She was having a stroke.
She was suffering a massive stroke. A blood vessel, an arteriovenous malformation had ruptured, and it was specifically hemorrhaging blood into the left hemisphere of her brain.
The analytical side.
It was a severe, life-threatening medical emergency. As the blood flooded her left parietal and temporal lobes, the specific brain functions associated with that hemisphere began to flicker and shut down, like lights turning off in a house.
What did she lose?
Within a few hours, Taylor entirely lost her ability to use language. She couldn't speak, and she couldn't understand words. She lost the ability to track linear time. She couldn't understand where her body ended and the environment began. She couldn't follow sequential logic. The left brain was essentially silenced.
But, and this is the part that changes everything, because the left hemisphere went offline. The anxiety spiral went offline with it. The storyteller died. The interpreter stopped interpreting. And Taylor lost all of her anxiety.
Completely gone.
With her right hemisphere now completely dominant, untethered from the left brain's constant warnings, she experienced a radical shift in human consciousness.
How did she describe it?
She described the feeling of her right hemisphere awareness as feeling like a great whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria. She felt an inexpressible, profound connection to everything around her. The boundaries of her ego dissolved. She felt a deep, expansive compassion and a profound, infinite peace.
Taylor's experience provides a crucial biological distinction between two concepts that modern psychology often conflates: happiness and joy.
They aren't the same.
There's a mountain of modern neuroscience and cognitive behavioral therapy that looks at the left brain as the source of happiness. But if we look at the work of psychologists like John B. Arden, we see a very specific left-brained approach to mood management.
Which is what?
Arden and others often advise that if you are sad or anxious, you should manipulate your external environment to change your internal state. Force yourself to put on a happy face. Force yourself to call a friend. Force yourself to go out to lunch or go for a run.
Wait, isn't that just treating happiness as another control strategy? Like, if I perform these specific external tasks, if I manipulate the variables perfectly, I will manufacture the biochemical result of happiness.
Precisely. The left brain views happiness as a transaction dependent on external circumstances.
Right.
I will be happy if I get the promotion. I will be happy when the email is sent.
Right.
But Jill Bolt Taylor's right brain reality reveals something entirely different. The right hemisphere doesn't require external conditions to be perfect. It has access to a profound internal awe and joy that exists completely independently of what is happening in the outside world.
Independent of the circumstances.
Think about Taylor's situation. She wasn't happy that she was having a stroke. Her career was in jeopardy. Her life was at risk. She was facing a severe cognitive disability. Yet, internally, she was enveloped in joy. Joy is an unconditioned state of being.
A great whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria. I mean, who doesn't want that? If you're listening to this, you are probably exhausted by the barking dog in your head.
We all are.
We know the right brain holds the key to an anxiety-free existence. The peace we are desperately looking for on vacation or in a bottle of wine or in a meditation app is literally already physically located inside our own heads.
It's right there.
But here's the massive practical problem for the listener. We cannot give ourselves a left brain hemorrhage to get there.
Definitely do not do that.
And we shouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Taylor had to spend 8 years painfully relearning how to walk, talk, and do math.
Mm.
We need our left brains. We need language to communicate with our families. We need logic to build bridges. We need sequence to know how to pack a suitcase and pay our taxes on time. So if we can't and shouldn't destroy the left brain, how do we practically access this euphoric right brain state without suffering massive brain damage?
This is the mechanism of liberation. This is how we escape. Anxiety cannot just be ended. You cannot simply command your left brain to stop worrying.
Because if you sit in a chair and say, don't think about the leopard, don't think about the leopard, what are you thinking about?
Well, leopard, nature abhors a vacuum.
Yes, it does.
The human mind is an endlessly, unstoppably generative machine. It is always making something. It consumes energy and produces thought. If you manage to momentarily suppress your anxiety through sheer willpower, but you don't give the brain a new, engaging task, it will inevitably default right back to the only job it knows how to do well.
Spinning the anxiety spiral.
You cannot empty the mind. You have to actively give the machine a different kind of fuel.
And the fuel is creativity. There is a literal neurological toggle switch in your brain. When you look at fMRI scans of people engaged in different tasks, you see that the brain operates in different networks.
The default mode network.
Right. The default mode network is where our minds wander, where we ruminate on the past and worry about the future. That's the anxiety hub. But when we engage in focused, novel, creative tasks, the brain switches to the task-positive network.
A literal physical switch?
When the neural centers associated with creativity, play, and deep curiosity are up and running, the anxiety centers are forced to go silent. The biology simply doesn't support running both networks at maximum capacity simultaneously.
You can't be curious and panicked at the same time.
You cannot be intensely, genuinely curious about something and intensely anxious about it at the exact same moment. They are mutually exclusive neurological states. You have to deliberately, consciously shift your neural activity to the brain structures that generate wonder, connection, and exploration.
It is entirely about rerouting the electrochemical traffic. You are taking the energy that was feeding the tire ripper and plugging it into a different machine.
I think about it like trying to stop a heavy, moving car that has lost its brakes. If your car is rolling downhill towards a cliff, you can't just take your foot off the gas, close your eyes, and hope for the best.
That won't end well.
Eventually, the physics of gravity and the slope of the hill are going to pull that car right down into the abyss. You have to take action. You have to actively throw the car into gear, press the pedal down, and violently steer it somewhere else. You have to give the momentum a new direction.
You have to steer it.
But I want to ground this, because if I hear the word creativity as a cure for my panic attacks, I might roll my eyes. Does this mean that when I get a terrifying, cryptic email from my boss that says, we need to talk, I'm supposed to whip out an easel and start watercoloring a sunset to calm down?
No, not at all. And it's crucial to redefine what Beck means by creativity in this neurological context. She doesn't mean fine arts. She doesn't mean you need to become a poet or write a symphony.
Then what does she mean?
Creativity here means approaching any aspect of your life, any problem, any mundane task with deep, open-ended curiosity rather than rigid fear.
Ah, curiosity.
It means looking at a problem, whether it's cooking a complex meal without a recipe, solving a difficult engineering puzzle, navigating a conflict with a difficult teenager, or, yes, getting a cryptic email from your boss and changing the fundamental question your brain is asking.
The anxious left brain asks, what if this goes terribly wrong? What if I get fired?
Exactly. The creative right brain asks, I wonder what this is about. I wonder how I can navigate this conversation. What are the possibilities here? It is the neurological shift from threat detection to exploration.
It's shifting from what if to I wonder.
Yes. The ultimate goal, as Beck describes it in the culminating part of her book, is reaching a state she calls co-mingling with creation.
Co-mingling with creation. Sounds a bit mystical, like something you'd read on a tapestry in a yoga studio.
It does sound a bit out there.
But it is deeply grounded in this right brain biological reality. It is essentially a state of profound, effortless flow. It's when you are so deeply engaged in what you are doing, so intensely curious about the materials in your hands or the person in front of you, that the anxious self entirely dissolves.
You lose yourself in the task.
The ego, that left brain narrator constantly chattering about your insecurities and your future, just goes quiet. You merge with the task.
It is the complete dissolution of the rigid, terrified, separate self. Beck uses a beautiful biological metaphor here. She compares this process to the life cycle of a dragonfly.
A dragonfly.
Yes, the dragonfly larva lives its early life completely underwater, encased in a hard, restrictive shell crawling in the mud. To become what it is ultimately meant to be, that old form, that hard shell, literally has to dissolve.
It has to break down.
The structure breaks down, but that dissolution isn't a death. It is the exact necessary biological process that grants the creature the wings and the ability to fly.
That's beautiful.
When you allow the anxiety spiral to dissolve into the flow of pure creativity and curiosity, you aren't losing yourself. You are unlocking your highest, most expansive cognitive potential. You are trading the mud for the sky.
Which brings us to a very serious call to action for you, the listener. Because choosing this path, choosing to consciously step off the societal tire ripper, to silence the alarm bells, and to live in a state of curious, right-brained flow is a radical act.
It is deeply countercultural.
It really is. When you stop participating in the collective panic, when you stop refreshing the newsfeed with dread every morning, when you refuse to engage in the office gossip that fuels the contagion of anxiety, society might not applaud you. In fact, society might view you as peculiar.
People might think you're crazy.
Right. When everyone else is vibrating with stress about the economy or politics and you are operating from a place of calm, original creativity, people might look at your lack of panic and assume you are out of touch or irresponsible or just naive.
It requires immense internal courage to refuse the contagion of anxiety. It is much easier to just absorb the panic of the crowd. You have to ask yourself a very difficult question. Are you prepared to question conventional societal wisdom so deeply that you are willing to physically shift the gray matter in your head?
Are you willing to rewire your own brain?
To pave new neural superhighways, even if it means you no longer quite fit into the puzzle piece of an anxious, hypervigilant culture?
Are you willing to be the one person in the room not yelling fire? It's a profound challenge. Let's recap the journey we've taken today, because we have covered a massive amount of neurological, historical, and psychological ground.
We really have.
We started by defining the sheer scale of the modern inner pandemic and breaking the myth of the fixed brain to understand neuroplasticity. We looked under the hood at the false alarm of the left brain anxiety spiral. We learned that while true, biological fear is a temporary gift that vanishes when the threat is gone, anxiety is a vicious feedback loop.
The tire ripper.
It's the left brain's terrifying stories, continuously triggering the amygdala's alarm over and over again, locking us onto the tire ripper.
We then scaled that biological mechanism up, recognizing that this internal loop is highly contagious.
Right.
Through the action of mirror cells and the architecture of our social structures, individual panic rapidly becomes a collective delusion.
The up escalator.
Exactly. It traps all of society in a cycle of self-defeating control strategies. We see threats where there are none, reacting to cardboard cutouts because our evolutionary negativity bias won't let us see the safety in the room.
But we also found the escape route. We looked at the profound reality of Jill Bolte Taylor's right brain euphoria and realized that true peace isn't dependent on manipulating external control. It is an internal state of unconditioned joy.
It's already in there.
And the way to access that state, the way to flip the neurological toggle switch and silence the anxiety without needing a brain hemorrhage, is to replace the worry with relentless, present-moment curiosity and creativity. We have to commingle with creation. We have to ask, I wonder, instead of what if.
It is the ultimate necessary shift from managing fear to cultivating wonder.
And as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over. We spent the last hour talking about how destructive and exhausting anxiety is. And it is. But I want you to think about the sheer amount of mental energy, the raw processing power it takes to sustain a massive 24/7 anxiety spiral.
It takes a lot.
Your brain is generating incredibly detailed, highly cinematic, high-stakes fictional worlds out of thin air all day long. The storylines your left brain creates are complex, the emotional stakes are real, the physiological response is immense. You are doing world building on par with a science fiction novelist. You are just doing it about your own life going wrong.
That's an amazing way to look at it.
What if your anxiety isn't a sign that you are broken? What if it's actually the ultimate proof of your immense, unstoppable creative genius is just a superpower that accidentally got stuck in reverse? You already have the engine of a master creator inside your head. It's running right now. If you can build an entire all-consuming physical reality out of fear, just imagine the world you could build when you finally flip the switch to joy.